Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 53, featuring the top 5 Neelix episodes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse, and I am the host of the TrekRanks podcast. And tonight, we're getting back into our character series with a breakdown of our top 5 Neelix episodes, or moments, or however you want to highlight the greatness of everyone's favorite Delta Quadrant hedgehog. This is the 5th time that we've done a specific character episode. So previously we've done Captain Kirk, we've done Ben Sisko, Commander Data, and Colonel Kira Nerys. So obviously the next logical character to pick was Neelix, because we love Neelix here at the TrekRanks podcast. And some tells me that this may not be our most popular episode in terms of downloads because of this topic, but that's just wrong. This should be our most popular episode because Neelix rules. We love him. Okay, so joining me tonight for this great topic is our friend from the Great White North in Canada, Mr. Brandon-Shea Mutala. He of the Great Warp 5 podcast and Melodic Treks over at Trek FM. B-Shay, great to have you back, brother.
I'm thrilled to be here, especially for this one.
So B-Shay was on our show back on episode 9, so it's a while ago, our top 5 high-concept Voyager episodes. And at that time, we learned his great love for Neelix. And he said if we ever do Neelix, we have to bring him back on.
Yes.
Let's get rolling on some Neelix love. All right, let's get into our TrekRanks recalibration before we get into tonight's topic.
What are you recalibrating? Everything. It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems. I would be fascinated to observe this recalibration, Doctor.
As regular listeners will know, general order number 1 here at the TrekRanks podcast is that we love Trek, and we love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started. So hopefully when you listen, you have some fun with it, maybe think about a few episodes or ideas that you haven't thought about for a while.
But what is that Vulcan motto? Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
And what is diversity? A celebration of differences.
And our mantra here at TrekRanks is no wrong answers. TrekRanks is basically just a big old celebration of differences. Our show is about all the reasons we love Star Trek. We're not here to nitpick or to argue, but just to celebrate the greatness of Trek. We love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery as well. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Open hailing frequencies. Hailing frequencies open. On viewer.
And you can find TrekRanks on the interface links at TrekRanks.com. And you can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. And you can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. All right, B-Shay, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you on the net access interface.
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon-Shea. That's probably the best place to find me. I'm tweeting Trek, I'm tweeting some movies, and I'm tweeting just about everything. Been having a little bit of fun over on Twitter. I try and tweet daily.
All right, let's get into our level 1 diagnostic.
Diagnostic cycle will be complete in 20 seconds.
Okay, so for this week's Diagnostic Cycle, like we do for every character episode, we're each going to pick one word to describe Neelix just to get us ready for our pick. So, B-Shay, let's start with you, man. What's your one word to describe Neelix?
Leo LaRoute. No, I'm just kidding. There's only one word.
I love that pick, though. Anyway, let's go. What do you got?
There's only one word I think that you can use to describe Neelix, and in my opinion, that's selfless. So that's the word that I chose to describe him. My favorite character on Star Trek Voyager, selfless.
I love that, and that's exactly what he is. It's so good. Okay, and before I get to my single word, I just want to relay where Neelix ranks on our character ranks listing over at TrekRanks. So we've ranked all 42 regular characters in Trek history. That's all the like regular characters, so like opening credit characters, and not including Discovery. And we love them all, of course. So why rank them? But we just do it just for the fun of it, just for something to talk about. So Neelix comes in at a pretty decent number 25. And my 5 words in a hashtag for his character is more gravitas than you remember. Hashtag on point from first scene. So when I was trying to, because I just loved it, I just feel like he was super consistent for all 7 years. So when I was trying to choose just one word for such a jack of all trades like Neelix, there was kind of a bunch of different directions I was going in. And actually I was thinking in terms of the way Brandon-Shea was thinking. Tried to get clever with it, maybe a little clever wordplay, but I just kept coming down to, I just got the simplest word ever. Neelix is nice. That's it. He's just nice. And I just like the way he treats people with respect. And he's always trying to help people, selfless, like Brandon-Shea said. Yeah, I just think he's one of the most redeeming characters that we've seen in Trek. All right, so before we jump into the Prime Directive, since we haven't mentioned it yet, let's also just do a little shout out to Ethan Phillips for his amazing portrayal as Neelix. Hilarious guy. If you're ever at a Star Trek convention and Ethan Phillips is there, do not miss his panel because he tells the best jokes, many of them very blue. He's awesome. All right, so with that little preview out of the way, let's jump into our Prime Directives and see how everyone defined their picks.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
So as we always say in our character shows, we call it top 5 episodes, but we also, you can choose a moment. It can be an episode that's about that character, or maybe not even an episode that's about that character, and it's just a single moment in that episode that you love about that character. So you can choose anything you want, but this is really episode, moments, however you want to define it. So Brandon-Shea, let's start with you. I'm wondering how you defined your top 5 Neelix episodes, and if you found yourself gravitating more towards full episodes or single moments as you made your picks.
Well, it was pretty easy for me to come up with my list because again, I love Neelix so much. And before I give you my how I came to my episodes here, I did want to say something here about Neelix, and that one thing that I find a little mind-boggling when people talk about, because Neelix is not a favorite character, and I've heard so many people say that he's like their least favorite character on Voyager, and I just don't understand that. In my opinion, I don't understand how people can not love Neelix, yet so many people love Phlox, because to me they are like two sides of the same coin. Yeah. Because they're both alien, they both got positive outlooks, they both got positive perspectives on things, they both jump in with both feet to everything, whatever situation they're in. They look for the positive. They give good advice. They're trying different foods all the time. They both have comedy episodes and comedy moments, and they both have serious episodes and serious moments.
Yeah.
They're very diverse characters, and I don't understand why so many people can love Phlox and not love Neelix. It just boggles my mind.
That's a great point. I love it. So then how did you narrow down your picks? I love that line of thinking there.
Well, I wanted to include as many references to Leola root stew as possible. But in the end, I really wanted to pick the first 5 things that came to my mind.
Ooh.
These are moments that encapsulate Neelix for me, but they're also 5 scenes that sum up who I feel his character is and why he means so much to me.
Okay. Together, they should give us a good snapshot of the character and how Brandon-Shea looks at him. I found myself gravitating a little more towards straight Neelix episodes in my picks for sure. And I did a ton of research. This was great. I must have watched almost 20 episodes. Marathoning. It was great. I had time to do it. So every time I was going to watch a Trek episode, I was like, well, let me check this one for Neelix. And yes. So I stayed away from, I think, picks that were just key moments. There is one that's not necessarily a Neelix episode, and it's more of a moment, but he does play a big part in the episode. So, and yeah, these are basically my favorite Neelix episodes and the ones that jumped out at me. definitely had a tough time narrowing it down. So there's a lot of great options. I'll rattle off a few secondary systems at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, we got no third Ramatacon tonight. He's not going to be with us today. Instead, we're now entering our briefing with Neelix.
Good day, Voyager, and welcome to A Briefing with Neelix. It's a catchy title, isn't it?
And just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through our briefing with Neelix this week. First, each of us will reveal our original TrekRanks 5 words and a hashtag summary to tease our pick. Then we'll reveal our top 5 Neelix episode, and we'll discuss why we picked it. And at the end, we'll rattle off a few secondary system selections for some of the picks that maybe just missed our list. And as always, if we have any duplicates tonight, you'll know it when you hear the defiant torpedoes. Okay, Bishay, let's start with you, man. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 Neelix episode?
Well, I got to say that I'm disappointed because I was going to, if it had been a week ago that we recorded this, I was going to say that my number 5 pick was going to be the reveal of Neelix as the Red Angel, because I really thought it was going to be him.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
But unfortunately, we did get the actual reveal, which I won't spoil here tonight. Yes. But
Neelix
possibly
is not the Red Angel. Go ahead, Bisha.
Hashtag astonishing. 5-word summary, Neelix, good to meet you. Might be a little bit of a easy pick, but I couldn't have this list without it, and I couldn't have it in this position because it's going to tie back to a later pick that I'm going to give you guys here. But it's Season 1, Episode 1, Caretaker, Neelix's introduction on the transporter pad.
Of course. A great pick, an awesome pick. I love that introduction moment with Tuvok. Sets up so much for 7 seasons. So, Bishay, why'd you pick it?
So, for me, it's really interesting to see a new character that doesn't know about Starfleet technology. And one of the things that I do like about Neelix the most is his positivity and his kind of taking things at face value, right? So when Tuvok says, I am Vulcan, and he says, Neelix, good to meet you. And we get the recurring joke of Mr. Vulcan out of this scene. Yeah. And a lot of people are like, they think it's belittling and mean and whatnot. But to me, it's a summation of Neelix's character. And it's the beginning of the relationship of 2 very important characters and a very important relationship that's going to go on through the next 7 seasons of this show. And that's the relationship between Neelix and Tuvok and how they're opposites in every way, shape, or form, yet it doesn't bother Neelix in the slightest. And in fact, he works harder to try and work with that Vulcan. And I love it.
Yeah, that's perfect. And there's also this, and I'll say jack of all trades, but I'm not sure there's a better way to describe it. But there's this little bit of like, he's capable of anything, and he's a little nefarious. I mean, when they first introduced him, I said he's kind of on point for all 7 seasons. He is a little darker in the first couple of seasons where you always kind of think, well, maybe there's a little more motive there that he's hiding from the crew because of his past as a traitor. And the fact that in the very first episode, he misleads them. And he misleads them down there to basically, try to save Kes. So, and I think it's ultimately not a negative because he's doing it for absolutely the right reason. And he doesn't know these people and he's using them. All right. I love that pick. I love that we started with Caretaker. Awesome. Let's go to my round 5 pick. And so my first pick is actually a personal favorite episode of mine. It's a bit of a little secret hidden mantra episode for all things TrekRanks. And I leave it to Neelix to talk sense to a bunch of nitpickers. I love this episode. I'm going to talk about these meta scenes in a second. 5 words and a hashtag. Meta Neelix handles Trek nitpickers. Hashtag shut up, Echem. It is the haunting of Deck 12. And it's just a great episode. So super fun. And the structure is just fantastic with Neelix telling the story to the Voyager Borg kids about this cool mystery that's going on the ship. And when I say it's a cool mystery, the truth is it's like a standard Trek energy being kind of takeover episode, but the structure makes it all feel really fresh and new in the way this story's told. And Neelix is amazing as the backbone of this episode. And the thing I love about it most is these meta winks that the writers, I know they did this on purpose, and they throw these into the stories. And again, it's like everything I believe in with TrekRanks. And so I'm gonna play these for you right now. The first one here is it's twice when the kids, and more specifically Ichab, are basically taking the role of the annoying Star Trek nitpicking fans by complaining about the way he is telling the story.
Report.
The nebula's beginning to destabilize.
Cause?
I'm not sure. It could have something to do with the Nadion emissions being produced by the Bassar collectors.
You're not remembering correctly.
I beg your pardon?
The Bassard collectors don't produce Nadion emissions.
Well, the technical details don't matter. What's important is that Voyager's presence was destabilizing the nebula, and the crew wasn't interested in taking any chances.
7 of 9 to the bridge. Bridge acknowledged.
But of course, there was no answer.
Why didn't she remodulate her neural transceiver, send a message that way?
That's an interesting question. You'll have to ask her.
Stop interrupting.
So I love those two moments because none of those details matter. It's just about the story, and you can talk your way through any of those little trivial things in terms of nitpicking. So one of my favorite episodes, it's a Mike Sussman script from a story by Kenneth Biller and Brian Fuller, and it's a classic. So Abhishek, what's your take on The Haunting of Deck 12?
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I like this episode a lot because of what you said with the structure of it, that they're telling this traditional Star Trek story, but they're telling it in a new way. And, it kind of reminds me of, if I remember correctly, it reminds me of Carbon Creek in the end, because you're almost thinking it's not true.
Right.
And then at the end of it, it is true.
Yeah, you're not quite sure if it's true or not until the very, very end. Super cool.
I like that. I like it, and it works in both the episodes, both Carbon Creek and in Haunting of Deck 12. I think it's really a great ending.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, let's go on to round 4. Bishay, what's your number 4 pick?
So my hashtag is #HobbitFeet. 5-word summary: more drinks / dancing for everyone. It's the opening teaser sequence for season 3, episode 10, Warlord, and creating the resort program.
Oh man,
I love the resort program, and what I really love about it is, again, it's a typical Neelix scene where he's like, I'm going to create this thing for everybody because I'm thinking about everybody. Let's get something new. We have this wonderful thing on my home planet of Talax, and everybody loves this place. And when Paris and Kim modify it a bit, they cut to that scene of him where he looks like he's going to be angry. And then he's like, this is fun. And he just goes with it. And it's like, there's people in life that are like that are like, they just want to be angry at things. Because people come in and it's like, well, let's modify it to make it better. And he's like, let's just go with it. And then it's a weird teaser because it ends with him dancing with that Caribbean band and whatnot. But I really, really love this scene because, again, it shows Neelix having fun, thinking of the crew, caring for the crew, and learning how to adapt and go with it. And I don't know, I love that scene a lot.
Oh my God, that is an awesome pick. Not the last time we see Neelix dancing either. Yeah, Bishay, great pick. I had forgotten that resort was a Neelix idea, and that they did that switch, and that it was they.
I can't remember the name of the program, but
program, but whatever. That's awesome. That is a fantastic pick. Okay, let's go to my number 4 pick, and my 5 words in a hashtag. Neelix forgives himself and Hakonians. Hashtag Metreon Cascade. And it is one of the best episodes of season 1 of Voyager, Jetrel. Mm-hmm. It's definitely one of the best Voyager episodes overall, I think. At TrekRanks, it's in the top 30 or 40 episodes. And yeah, it's just all-time great. Really impactful story for Neelix, where we see and hear a lot of his backstory. And we learn about Talax and the fact that their planet was conquered by the Hakonians in a really awful way, and literally what that means to Neelix, in terms of how he deals with it and the responsibility for the actions that he took when that was happening. Because you think that he was just fighting in the war, but then he kind of realized he's beating himself up because he was ashamed for hiding from the war and not really doing more to save his family. It's a really, really powerful And I think it gave Neelix some really, I keep saying that it gave him gravitas in that first season that I think carried him through all 7 seasons. Yeah, it's just a powerful episode. We'd be remiss to not mention the amazing performance from James Sloyan as Tetrell in this episode. That guy is a Star Trek MVP for his many guest appearances.
Yeah, I didn't include this on my list. It was a hard cut. It was definitely on my secondary systems. And it's not because I don't like the episode. I love it. One of the really interesting things that I find about this episode is I compare it a lot to Duet from Deep Space Nine because, they got kind of similar themes and whatnot. They're both powerful episodes. And while the seasons are different lengths, they're both the second last episode of the first season as well. So like there's this kind of interesting parallel between these episodes, and I love them both. But here we get our first powerhouse performance out of Ethan Phillips as Neelix, with so much emotion behind this and so much pain that he's retelling the story of what happened for this Metreon Cascade. It's a great pick, and I don't know, it's probably the best Neelix episode, but it's definitely the top 2 or 3 Neelix episodes for sure. I think it's the best episode in season 1.
Yeah, it's right there. It's right there for sure. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the soup round. Our number 3 picks. Bishay, kick us off.
Excellent. Well, you have no idea how hard it was to not put mushroom soup in this round here, but
yeah, that's true.
I had to keep that one out. So my hashtag for this one here, so this is when we start to get into some of the serious episodes with Neelix here. Hashtag 1 step. 5-word summary: lying, sneaking around, criminal activity. Season 3, episode 13, Fair Trade. Specifically the scene at the end with Janeway and Neelix. And, I find a lot of people, they don't seem to like this episode because it's like he's been on the ship for 2.5 years, so he should know better than to have to sneak around behind Janeway's back. But the way that I've always seen this episode is almost like he's been in a tough situation his whole life, and Voyager is still almost too good to be true for him. And I'm assuming that the people that have interacted with him in the past have been users and abusers, and they've only kept him around while they've needed him. And so, for those people who have been abused in the past, there's always that fear of like, when is the other shoe going to drop? So for Neelix's character as a scavenger, I've always felt this to be very believable, and this comes at a very perfect point in his story arc across the show, because it's like he doesn't know what's there, so they might kick him off because he's used to people tossing him to the curb.
Wow. That's so full disclosure, I'm kind of one of those people when it comes to this episode. It didn't bug me, but I always kind of I felt like that was more of a kind of a writer's trope just to create drama, and I always thought, man, why would you do that? But that is fantastic, and that makes a ton of sense, Bishay. And it adds more gravitas to Neelix, and that just makes perfect sense. And you mentioned it, the scene at the end, because I did rewatch this in my prep. The scene at the end with Janeway is special. It's really, really, really strong, and the way she dresses him down, but also builds him up. It's really, really good. All right. Well, Bishay, great pick, man. You really made a good case for this. And I like the fact that he is throughout the episode trying to do the right thing.
And it's just one step. Yeah. One wrong step leads to another, and I again, he's trying to do it out of the goodness of his heart, and one decision leads to a wrong choice, and he's just trying to fix it for the rest of the episode. And it's painful to watch, and it hurts to watch because of what I see the character is. And I love this episode. I think it's a really great one too.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, let's jump on. Let's go to my round 3 pick and the soup round to close it out. So this is my only episode that I didn't really pick a full Neelix episode, even though he features in it pretty prominently. 5 words and a hashtag. If we destroy the evidence, hashtag, we're no better than them. And it is a memorial from season 6, episode 14 of Voyager. And it's a great episode. And the main reason I picked this episode is because after everything goes down with all those memories being imprinted on Paris, Kim, Chakotay, and Neelix. So this is the one where they have these visions of an atrocity imprinted in their brains, and they're kind of reliving it. And really, the whole crew ends up getting imprinted. And when they go back to investigate it and kind of figure out what happened, and they find this memorial to this atrocity that had taken place, Neelix is the one arguing to everybody that we have to fix this memorial. Paris, Kim, and Chakotay are standing there saying, let's destroy this thing so nobody else gets inflicted by these memories. Things not working right, let's just destroy it. And it's Neelix who's literally yelling at them in this conference room. We have to fix the memorial, otherwise we're no better than them. We have to be able to tell these victims' story.
Even if we do shut down the transmitter, I'm afraid your memories of the massacre are permanent.
But we'll prevent this from happening to other passing ships. If we do that, all record of what happened here would be lost.
The monument will still be here.
But that doesn't really tell the story. Someone put a lot of time and care into building that transmitter. We can't just deactivate it. We don't have the right.
Did they have the right to force us to relive all that?
They wanted others to know what it was like in the hopes that nothing like it would happen again.
Why should anyone have to experience an atrocity they didn't commit?
Because that's how you learn not to make the same mistake. If we destroy the evidence, we're no better than Sopra.
Maybe he had a point. It wasn't our fault.
Given the danger involved, it's only logical.
This isn't about logic. It's about remembering.
Some things are best forgotten.
Not this.
And I just love that moment. Janeway's fighting with him as well because she realized that's the right thing to do. So for me, just a great moment that really speaks to the character of Neelix, that he's the one trying to, even though he's been, violated by these memories.
Yeah.
He's standing up and saying, we need to fix this thing and make sure everybody remembers these 82 people that died.
Oh, that's a great choice. That's a great choice. I didn't even think of that one. That's a really, really good choice. And it's so him. Like, it fits in with his character. I love it.
Yeah, it jumped out at me when I was kind of brainstorming. That I just remembered him being the loudest voice in that room when they were having that discussion. I mean, it's a great classic Trek morality tale for sure, in terms of remembering these things and not being doomed to repeat them. Okay, all right, yeah, great episode, super underrated, I think, in Voyager overall. Okay, let's go to round 2. Bishay, what's your number 2 Neelix episode?
# his function is diverse. 5-word summary, called back to his life. Season 4, episode 12, Mortal Coil. I don't think this episode list could be complete without this one. Like, it's a really hard episode to watch, and I watched the scene again at the end, specifically the scene with him and Chakotay at the end, and it rips my heart out every time I see it. I mean, I had a friend commit suicide about a decade ago now, and it took a long time for me to come to terms with it and realize it, and it took a long time for me to realize that he was gone, and he always seemed like such a positive and such a happy individual. And, to have somebody like Neelix go through a secret pain like that, to struggle with a near-death experience and to basically lose his faith, like, that's a strong thing for him. And I love that it's Chakotay that's there at the end. And while it kind of feels a bit over to the top, having Naomi called, Samantha Wildman called just at the right moment at the end. I mean, it's one of those things too, where it feels a bit over the top, but it's also perfect because he is involved with so many people, and I'm certain people are calling him for help all the time, that it's not just a trope that they called him right at that moment,
Honestly, that's my favorite moment in the episode, because I think it totally works in the Nancy Howard, the actress that plays Samantha Wildman, her voice acting on that I think is fantastic. I think it's really, really works.
Yeah. And when she comes in there, she's like, what's going on? He's like, I'm trying to decide something. And it's like, he's loved. Like everybody on the ship loves him. And he's so valuable to them.
11 years ago, I saw my world in ruins. My family murdered. All that's kept me going is knowing that one day we'd be together again. That I'd see them again. But it's not true. And I can't live without that hope.
I understand how this can change the way you look at things, but it can also lead to an even stronger faith. You don't know. You're not there yet.
Ensign Wildman to Neelix.
Answer her!
Neelix, please respond.
No.
You're being called back to your life again, Neelix. Don't turn your back on it. We're your family now.
It's not enough.
It is for us. His function on this crew is diverse. That's what 7 of 9 said about you. Even our Borg understands how important you are on this ship. It's not just the duties you perform. It's the way you make people feel when you're around.
That Neelix is gone.
I don't think he is.
Why didn't you answer me? I had to have the computer track you down. Naomi thought she saw a monster in the replicator. Neelix, what's going on?
I'm trying to decide some things.
That little girl needs you, Neelix. Monsters in the replicator? Who else on the ship can handle that?
He's the best. I don't know. He's my favorite character, and it hurts to see this episode and to see him go through this pain. But that's why I love the episode so much, because everybody has problems, and no matter how happy the person and no matter how much they want to help out, they're going to have a problem at some time. And sometimes people think suicide's the only way out, and that's wrong. That's a lie. Like there's always help, and there's you can always get help, and people should reach out if they need that help. And I mean, I was in a different province when my friend ended his life, but I mean, I wish somebody could have been there for him. I wish he could have had somebody that he could have reached out to. And so I see this episode and I think about my friend Matthew a lot every time I see this episode, so.
That's awesome, Vishay, man. I appreciate you saying that. And it's one of Trek's best in terms of tackling this topic, which obviously is pretty heavy.
Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people, they don't like it as well because they're like, oh, the magical nanoprobes again, right? But I mean, it is kind of early on in the run of the magical nanoprobes. So it's not quite a trope yet.
Yeah. As a wise man once said,
well, the technical details don't matter.
It's good stuff. And let's get another shout out to Ethan Phillips for his portrayal in this episode. One of his strongest and finest hours. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's go on to my round 2 pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Action hero Neelix, you bet. Hashtag Jonas gets fried. Investigations from Voyager Season 2. I love the serial storytelling arc of the entire nature of Season 2 of Voyager. And yeah, Neelix is just super great in this episode. And we talked about it a little bit, but one of my favorite things is how caring he is about Tom. And he was really worried about him when he was leaving the ship. And again, great acting from Ethan Phillips. And I just love that when he finds out what's really happening with Janeway and Chakotay kind of telling him the story, he just says, anything I can do to get Tom home safely, I want to do. And I love that because that's Neelix to a core. And look, I will say this kind of half jokingly. My favorite part is that after he kills Jonas and saves the day, he is stone cold and he is quipping as he's walking out of engineering, where he's basically, Jonas was incinerated, and he says, yeah, Jonas wasn't so lucky. I'm going to have plenty of material for the next briefing with Neelix. It's pretty amazing. It's definitely a scene that's a product of 90s television, but it's hilarious. All right. Well, any final comments on Investigations, guys?
No, I like what you said though with the arc. You know, a lot of people complain about the lack of continuity with Voyager, and there's a lot of continuity in Voyager. You know, and even a character like Neelix, there's a lot of callbacks to things that have happened to his character in the past. But yeah, the storyline that they laid out over a few episodes with Paris is kind of neat.
Yeah, way more continuity there than people want to give credit to. Okay, let's go to round one. Our top Neelix episodes. Brandon-Shea, what do you got?
Okay, so this is a bit of a cheat because it's not entirely a Neelix moment, but it calls back to my number 5 choice. And when we get to our secondary systems, there's an episode that I really wanted to include, but just couldn't fit it because these other ones were more important. But it does fit. Like, it was going to be a 3-part thing in that list, but I just had to cut one of them. So,
all right, can't wait.
My hashtag is Boot Scoot and Boogie. 5-word summary: goodbye and good luck, Ambassador. And it's Tuvok's dance moves, season 7, episode 23, Homestead.
That's awesome. So that's in my secondary system, and I was definitely going to bring that up. It's, even though it's kind of more of a Tuvok thing, because Tuvok's the one that gives up the dance, it's such a great Neelix moment. I'm 100% down with this pick.
Yeah, because again, like, it goes back to my first pick, because it's the end of this 7-year voyage between these two frenemies, you know, and the fact that at this point Tuvok respected Neelix enough that he gave him a dance move at the end, and it's so cheesy, but you know, it rips my heart out every time I see it. Like, I warned you, I texted you, I said I might cry when we do this podcast. Every time I watch that, I bawl my eyes out every time I see Tuvok do that little move with his foot. Like, I don't know, just I bawl like a little baby.
I'm the same. I love that episode. I love that moment. And I can't believe you called it cheesy, man. It
is so cheesy.
Not cheesy at all. They do such a great job setting that up. In fact, that episode has so many things in it that people don't remember. It opens with the first Contact Day celebration, which was Neelix's idea to celebrate Vulcan and to celebrate Tuvok, and it's really cool. And there's a unbelievable moment from Chakotay as well, where when Neelix is meeting the Talaxians on the asteroid, and Chakotay's just talking them up, and I love that moment because it just is so respectful. It shows how much they love Neelix.
What's this?
This is an engineering station. And over there is tactical, and down there is the helm, and this is the captain's chair.
Which station is yours?
Well, actually, I don't have a specific. I'm more of a...
Neelix does too many things to have just one station. He's our ambassador, morale officer,
trade negotiator. Without a doubt, he's the most versatile member of our crew.
What'd you think of Neelix leaving the ship and not going all the way home?
Okay, I got serious feelings on that one. So I find I like the episode, and I like that we got a resolution for the Neelix character, but it also feels so weird for Star Trek, especially at this time, because had this been a season 2 or a 3 or a 4 episode, he would never have stayed behind, you know. And I don't know that just meeting 2 more Talaxians and falling in love is enough for him to justify staying behind at this point, because he's been through so much. And, you know, I wanted to see him get home to Earth with them. I wanted to see him on Earth. But I mean, like, Endgame ended so abruptly that you don't get to see any much resolution for anybody. But I don't know, it always did feel weird for me because it didn't feel like Star Trek of the time. And while that might be okay, it still feels really strange.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up the way I felt about it too. It wasn't bad, and I think they executed it pretty well. And there was a lot of emotion and heart. And heck, you picked it as your number 1 episode. But it did. Part of me really longed for him just to stay and be part of the return to Earth, because you knew that was coming. And we get to see him playing Cot is Cot in an episode later. So, okay. Here is, let's close it out with my number 1 pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Neelix just a good dude. # species, starship, or anomaly. It is from season 6 of Voyager. It is Riddles, a fantastic episode of Trek. And this episode for me is Neelix just top to bottom. He's just being a great friend to Tuvok. I find it incredible. I love this episode. And it was also, by the way, my #1 guilty pleasure episode for Voyager. So I actually considered not picking it today, but I couldn't do it. I had to pick it again. The entire episode is basically Neelix doing everything he can to help and support Tuvok, who's been disabled by I can't remember the species, but anyway, Tuvok is not himself, and I just find it really heartwarming and authentic, and it's really the reason I love Neelix. So even at the end, when Tuvok is being cured, and Neelix knows that the result will be them not being as close as they are because Tuvok is just loving Neelix right now. And Neelix is like, no, you need this ship needs its tactical officer, and that's more important than our friendship. And I think there's a really beautiful moment at the end when he says, having you merely tolerate me is enough for me. And I love Neelix, so this just great stuff. Oh, and at the very end when Tuvok answers his joke that he started the episode with about the man in the desert starving who has a calendar and he eats all the dates, and Tuvok's really annoyed. And at the end, Tuvok says, well, he could also eat the Sundays. And Neelix just got a big smile on his face. It's really great. And it's also the debut of Species Starship Anomaly, one of my favorite games.
How about a riddle?
Mr. Neelix.
Come on. It'll be fun.
I have no desire for fun.
Okay, forget fun. A good riddle can stimulate the mind. Now, no self-respecting Vulcan can say no to that.
Very well. One riddle.
Here goes. A lone ensign finds himself stranded on a Class L planetoid with no rations. His only possession, a calendar. When Starfleet finds him 12 months later, he's in perfect health. Why didn't he starve to death?
It is a theoretical possibility that such planetoids contain hot water springs, which could sustain the man for several weeks.
Ooh, but not for a whole year.
I concur. Logic dictates that the ensign in question would perish.
Aha! I stumped you. As a matter of fact, he not only survived, but his belly was full. Why? Because he feasted on dates from the calendar.
Love this episode. Great one. Brandon-Shea, what's your take on riddles?
It is a great choice, yeah. And another one that I didn't think of that would be a good fourth part for my trilogy that I couldn't even fit the third one in for. So, I love it, yeah, because him and Tuvok together, and Tuvok's loving him in this episode. But while you never doubted it, we got to get Tuvok back at the end of the episode. It still is tough for Neelix, who just wants this guy to be his friend.
Yeah, it's fun to see them interact. Roxanne Dawson directed this episode.
Okay.
Oh, and here it's actually from a story. First of all, it was written by Robert Doherty, who's gone on to do Elementary, the Sherlock Holmes series. So he's a big-time showrunner now. But the story was by Andre Bormanis, who wrote my episode, and directed by Roxanne Dawson, who directed my episode. That is a great shout-out.
Nice.
That's awesome. Okay, let's rattle off some secondary systems picks before we get out of here. Brandon-Shea, what's on your list?
So I really, really wanted to put the mushroom soup on from season 1, but just couldn't fit.
State of Flux,
yeah, where it's just such a Neelix thing where he's like, they're ripping the foods out of people's mouths, and
it's so great.
It's a really good scene. The third one, I wanted to put that in the soup round, but I just couldn't.
Well, the morale crisis ended a few minutes ago, so I'd say
Neelix to Chakotay.
that he probably does.
Go ahead, Neelix.
I'd like to report a crime. Someone has broken into my kitchen and stolen food, taken food out of the mouths of their crewmates.
I know.
It was that Seska, wasn't it?
I promise you everyone involved will be disciplined.
If you'd like my recommendations for punishment,
Thank you, I'll handle that. Chakotay out.
The other one that I wanted to put in position 3, because then it would have been like a position 5, position 3, and position 1 for my 3-part idea, was Rise. When he stands up to defend himself against Tuvok finally. I think it was a great episode, and it's an underrated episode. It's one that it's better when you rewatch it. Like I don't think of it as a good episode, and then I watch it and I'm like, man, that's a really good episode. And then I think about it.
I totally agree. That was on my secondary systems too, and I didn't pick it because I felt I like that episode because of the big scope of it more than just the Neelix Tuvok stuff. But
right,
100% right. It's a great episode.
Yeah, so I had to miss my list, and then I didn't catch the episode. I think it's in season 7. I think it's Lineage, but when he has sex with the Klingon woman, I think that's a pretty outstanding scene. So, and he's sharing the room with Tuvok.
Yeah, the episode was Prophecy for that.
Yeah,
it's great.
But then the one that I really wanted as well, and I just couldn't put on my list again, and I'm bad with names and whatnot. It's the one where he's like arguing with the doctor in sickbay, and then he's got to stay in the room. He's got to sleep in the sickbay, and he's arguing with the doctor. And then at the end, the doctor's like, "Okay, everybody out," and Neelix is just like, "Boom, everybody out! State of emergency, get out, doctor. Thank you." Thank you for your hospitality. And then the doctor's just crushed when he leaves, right? Because Neelix is such a heartwarming person. I don't know. I like that. I can't remember the episode, but I love that scene too. So
I think that might be I can't remember.
So many good ones.
I do remember that. Okay, awesome. All right, so my toughest cut on my list was Parturition. I love that episode. Bishay brought it up before with the hair pasta, but I really like the interaction between. It's kind of a trope story with Paris versus Neelix, but I love it, and I love the conservationist message at the end of that episode where they're protecting the hatchling that they find.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Neelix is the one saying we need to protect this animal that they found. So I love that moment. I had Macrocosm as well. I had Rise. I also had Juggernaut on my list. I think that's another cool episode where Neelix is at the forefront of his expertise to go over to the Malon freighter and kind of help with the mission that they have there. And my special shout out was Bishay's number 1 pick, Homestead. I love that finale. So nobody mentioned, there was no mention of Tuvix, which kind of makes sense, but it's not really a Neelix episode.
Right.
And there was no mention of False Prophets, which is not one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, you don't like Grand Proxy Neelix?
Not a big fan of that one.
But it calls back to the Barzan wormhole.
That's the best part about it. Yep. Oh, the Phage. Yes, Phage. Yes. That's a great one, too, of course, where he's incapacitated. Yeah. That's great.
In reference to Phage, I love in Macrocosm, I think it is, when they call back to him and he mentions that he only has 1 lung still down in Macrocosm when they're crawling through the tubes.
And speaking of Macrocosm, that was on my secondary systems because I really love that he's in it a lot to open up. He's kind of right there with Janeway.
The tac-tac.
And the tac-tac and all that. All right, I said it before, and I'll say it again. Neelix has more gravitas than you remember. He's a great character. Time to move into our regeneration cycle.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, let's run down a recap of our picks. Bishay, run down your top 5 for Neelix episodes.
Excellent. So I chose the scene of Neelix's introduction in Caretaker, Season 1, Episode 1, when he beams aboard the ship. I chose the introduction of the resort program from Season 3, Episode 10, Warlord. And I chose the end scene between Janeway and Neelix at the end of Fair Trade, Season 3, Episode 13. I chose the final scene of Mortal Coil between Chakotay talking down Neelix's suicide, Season 4, Episode 12. And my final pick, or my number 1 pick, is Tuvok's Dance Moves, Season 7, Episode 23, Homestead. Makes me bawl every time.
What a tribute. I love that list. And my top 5 picks, my number 5 was The Haunting of Deck 12 when Neelix shoots down some nitpickers. And my number 4 pick was Jetrel, a seminal moment in Voyager history. Number 3 pick, Memorial, when Neelix is defending the right of those victims to be remembered. Number 2, Investigations, when Neelix helps save Voyager from a traitor. And number 1 pick, Riddles, where Neelix just shows what a good dude he is as a friend to Tuvok. Love that. Okay, so here are some stat breakdowns. Pretty amazing. So for all 7 seasons were represented in our 15 picks, which is fantastic. Oh, nice. So there was 1 each from season 5 and season 7, and 2 each from season 2 and season 3 and season 4, and season 6 had 3 picks. And season 1 led the way with 4 picks, mostly because Caretaker and Jetrel are both season 1 episodes. All right, great recap. Let's now wind this episode down because we have entered a temporal causality loop. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
This week, we're flashing back to episode 49 in our top 5 courtroom showdowns. And as always, we got a bunch of great feedback from all of our listeners and everyone on Twitter. And the majority of those lists that were coming in included, obviously, the classics from TNG, like the Drumhead and the Measure of a Man. So there wasn't too much to talk about, but I'm going to highlight a couple of quick deep cut picks that I really liked that came in. First up, we have Thad Haight, who is at Tyrannicus on Twitter, who included Devil's Due on his list. I like that pick. And Josh Zeller, who is at Madcap of Science. Both those guys have been on the show. He had Dax from DS9, which was a classic courtroom setup for an episode.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure we've mentioned both of those on the show, but neither one were actually full picks. So this week, quick and easy, temporal causality loop is over. So thanks again to everyone for all their feedback. Keep those lists coming to me at TrekRanks so we can retweet them. But also we want to hear from you too. So put together your own list of top 5 Neelix episodes and give us a call. We'd love to hear from you directly. So call us at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. That's 609-512-LLAP. Hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are doing a marathon episode for just the second time. So way back in episode 5 of TrekRanks, we did our 5-episode marathon for a Star Trek newcomer. And I love that topic. I've been trying just to go back to just kind of a fun, someone put together a marathon type topic. So this time, we're just doing really simple. It's our 5-episode marathon for a rainy day. What better topic to talk about Star Trek on? So, Bishay, what is one episode right off the bat that you would choose for a rainy day Trek marathon if you were starting right now? Bishay.
Hands down, always pick Deadlock.
Always pick Deadlock. Oh, my God. That's such a great episode for a rainy day. Fantastic. All right. Well, looking forward to that fun topic. So before we wrap it up here, a huge thanks to our awesome guest tonight, Brandon-Shea Mutala. We just did a melodic treks together, so I'm looking forward to that coming out.
Yes, I think we're having a little bit of delay getting it out. It's all edited and ready to go, but I decided to throw something else in there, and so it's going to be a little bit before it comes out. But it was great to have you on. We discussed the music of Desert Crossing from season 1 of Enterprise, which people may know the music for some reason, having to do with this podcast.
You just might hear that music every time you listen to this podcast.
Yeah. But thanks so much, Jim, for having me on again. It's great to be on. It's funny because, Voyager's not my favorite Star Trek. It's pretty far down on the list, but I love it.
Yeah, but you're 2 for 2 on Voyager episodes. I love it.
Both times I've been on TrekRanks has been Voyager related. And I think that, it's one of those things where in the fandom that we're in right now, it's like, you can be critical of Star Trek and still love it, and I love Voyager, even though it's not my favorite, but I love it.
Of course.
It's good stuff.
Same. All right. Well, thanks again for everyone engaging with us here. Oh, my God. Hey, cats are fighting. Oh, my God. Come on. Just let me get this done. Okay. Hold on a second. It looks like they're being quiet. Okay. Thanks again for engaging with us here on episode 53 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Maybe another time.
Sundays.
I beg your pardon?
I have given further consideration to your riddle regarding the ensign who survived by consuming the dates from his calendar. It occurs to me that he could also have eaten the Sundays.
That's a very clever answer, Mr. Vulcan. But it's not very logical, is it?
Hi there, thanks again for listening. If you're cruising the galaxy looking for even more Trek talk, why not visit our good friends Bill and Dan over at TrekGeeks.com? They've got a great podcast that covers a wide range of Star Trek topics, so you're sure to find something you'll love. And if you're in the mood for some awesome tunes, then you really need to head over to 5yearmission.net. The guys are writing a song for every episode of the original series, and each one is absolutely brilliant. So that's TrekGeeks.com and 5yearmission.net. Check them out today.
I don't see why you're not having fun.
We are not here to have fun. We are here to collect samples.
Why, is there some regulation that says we can't do both at the same time? I know. Why don't we sing a song while we toil? It'll cheer you up. Now, I've been studying Vulcan music. Do you know that lovely tune that starts, "Oh, starless night of boundless black"?
That lovely tune is a traditional funeral dirge.
I know, but it was the the most cheerful song I could find in the Vulcan database. Come on, Tuvok, join me. Oh, starless night of boundless black.
Mr. Neelix.
Yes.
Do you think you could possibly behave a little less like yourself?